Now, normally I wouldn't be making this video, but let me just tell you, I really have to make this video. Why? Because I value the amount of PCs being used around the Philippines right now. At the same time, I definitely value how much they mean to people, especially how they're much used. Well, for gamers, it could be just a tool, but for video content creators, for publishers, they mean a lot more. And since I'm a video content creator, I gotta really talk about this. And since I'm also a gamer, I really gotta talk about this. But can PCs just be PCs, either desktop or laptop? Well, the answer is no. They can also be handheld. That's right. ASUS has produced a product that is handheld, can double as a PC and a gaming console. Something that can compete against the Steam Deck. Wow, just kidding me. So I have a video here by Linus Tech Tips. It's titled, I Hate Being Lied To, But I Love the ROG Ally. I'm not sure if that's the actual pronunciation, but if it is, thank you for letting me watch this, because this has been available for a day apparently. So yeah, we will see what happens. Yeah.
This just in, the price is $700 and it crushes the Steam Deck. Go buy one. That's what I'm gonna be doing. D-Brand sponsored this video, and sucks to be them, because this is all they get. A 30-second clip of me telling you to go to Best Buy and buy an ROG Ally. Which is especially funny because they don't even make skins for it yet. I'm kidding, of course. You guys are getting a full video. And it's gonna be a long one that dives into what makes the Ally great and address the inexcusable BS that ASUS dished out during the device preview.
The thing is, when it comes to device previews, they don't show everything. Sure, they show the basic specs, they show it in the face, but what's actually inside it? What's actually inside the ROG Ally? Of course they don't show it. This is the device preview you're talking about. Device preview you're talking about. It's not really a top-down dismantling of the entire device and taking a look at what is inside it. So, not everything that you hear from device previews are what is exactly advertised and commercialized and sold to the usual users of the actual product. You gotta really be a skeptic. If you are a tech savvy type of person, or you are a person who knows a certain product by its entire category, of course you can be a skeptic. That's why Linus Tech Tips is one of the YouTubers who definitely should actually take a look at this very closely, especially as you are looking at a handheld PC. Handheld. Let me tell you again, it is a big deal.
Review for this thing. Custom SoC? No. ASUS says that at 15 watts.
Excuse me. Finally returned, and let me just tell you, at least I rewinded it a bit just to give an opinion. PC, personal computer, has a motherboard, has a graphics card, has a sound card, and has multiple ports where you can actually put your devices on, personally, so definitely. A portable piece, a handheld PC like this does not have every number, does not have multiple number of USB devices, since this one's very small, not exactly a laptop, much smaller. So you gotta really put every component in a compact state, all in a single handheld console, and you gotta try to do your best to put it to spec, put it exactly to spec as you define it. Plus, there's also the thing when it comes to batteries. It will definitely drain out the battery much quicker. I mean, from what I first heard, 2 hours. If you're gaming with the console, you only consume the battery in full, from full state to empty by 2 hours. That's how much power it has. So yeah, it means a lot, but there are people who are still skeptic because there are performance nuts who want to see if it is really accurate. If the specs that are provided by ASUS is really accurate. They want to see it. So yeah.
Time for a love potion.
Usable BS that ASUS dished out during the device preview for this thing. Custom SoC? No. ASUS says that at 15 watts, they are up to 50% faster than the Steam Deck, and at 35 watts, they are double the performance. Those are some big asterisks, you guys. Oh, right, and you completely failed to mention that you get beat at 10 watts. But hey, you are still walking, right? You better be, because these things are going to sell out immediately. The Z1 Extreme SoC at its heart packs 8 Zen 4 cores and RDNA 3 graphics, and ASUS has paired it with 16 gigs of high-speed DDR5 memory, and ASUS has paired it with 16 gigs of high-speed DDR5 memory and a 512 gig Gen 4 NVMe SSD, all for just $50 more than a top spec Steam.
Made a love potion for you.
So basically, it spends more power, it needs more power, it's got more processing power, it's got a bigger graphical display, it has a higher refresh rate. Oh my god, this is a big deal. This is a very big deal, and it will sell out fast as long as there's still any stock. Wow.
Steam Deck. There's just one eensy-weensy problem. With our limited time, we made the call to test fewer games at more power profiles, and I'm really glad we did because we found some interesting stuff. Like the fact that at 10 watts, the Steam Deck mops the floor with the Ally, somehow. Metro Exodus, Forza Horizon 5, and Returnal all saw basically half the performance in both average FPS and 1% lows, showing that, again, no matter what kind of hardware anyone seems to cook up, the Steam Deck just crushes the rest of the field in the super low power draw weight class. I don't know what kind of wizardry Valve has employed here, but it is unbelievable. Until we add a bit more juice, where their advantage completely disappears. At 15 watts, Forza's 1% lows are now double the other way, offering a much smoother and more responsive gaming experience on the Ally. And all 3 games saw the Ally take a sizable performance lead here.
So basically, you add more watts to the Ally, and it's going to topple over the Steam Deck's performance. On the first time anyone hears this, when it comes to performance, that is insane. That is an insane improvement.
Anywhere from around 15 to 20% on average. Now that's not really the up to 50% improvement that we were told before, but it's still better than a kick in the teeth. Now, it is possible that at low settings we might see a different story, or maybe if we tested many more games, but we felt like these were pretty representative titles, and 720p medium was a fair reference point for both consoles. What isn't fair is how hard the Ally starts dunking on the competition at 25 watts. We saw anywhere between a 40 and nearly 70% advantage across our test suite, which to be fair, isn't quite apples to apples.
God.
The Steam Deck runs at 800p rather than 720p, but in the real world, I would much rather have the smoother gaming experience than the extra little bit of vertical height.
Exactly! See, the frames per second actually matters more to the gamer than the budget, than the actual cost-effective budget thing for other consoles, really. Oh, still trying to wrap my head around this, but I just saw turbo mode, and I am quoting turbo mode. That is a pretty huge deal. ASUS has... Okay. They've outdone themselves. They just one-upped Valve here. So... Grabe?
It's not small. Like, it's the difference between playing on medium and playing on ultra. It's the difference between playing at 30-ish FPS and playing at almost 60 FPS. And it gets even better. You can take this thing with you anywhere, but if you happen to be plugged in, ASUS offers a 30-watt turbo mode that widened the gap substantially in at least one of our test cases.
That actually makes sense. You need to draw more power if you want to grab the most power and give the most performance to anything. Exactly. 25 watts to 30 watts. That's a big jump. That's a big jump, and that's not going. That will not be overtaken by the. That will not be overtaken by the Steam Deck. I hope Valve is watching these videos because they're getting toppled by the minute when it comes to ASUS selling out. Oh, okay, sorry. I was just actually listening to things outside. So, ASUS is one-upping Valve by a big margin with the ROG Ally. You gotta really listen to this, like a lot.
I mean, look at this. This is Metro Exodus, a visually impressive AAA title released just a few years ago, and it's running on medium settings at 100 FPS on average. On a handheld. I guess ASUS finally did find incredible. Now, one similarity between the two devices is the battery. Both are packing 40 watt hours, and at 15 watts, which is a good power balance for both of them, and matched screen brightness at 60 Hz, we found that the Steam Deck's performance was a little bit longer. However, it's worth noting that the Steam Deck's included charger is only 45 watts max versus the Ally's 65 watt charger, so the Ally crushes the deck when it comes to charging time. Unless, of course, you upgrade to a third-party charger, but by the time you do that, well, you might as well have paid the extra money and gotten one of these. Because here's something the Steam Deck can't upgrade to. 1080p, baby! And not only is the Ally's display higher resolution, it's also 120 Hz. And while many, I dare say even most of the games that you'll wind up playing on these devices won't reach such high frame rates, whether it's due to performance or due to frame rate limiters, some of them will. And even for those that won't, it also supports variable refresh rate to reduce screen tearing, leading to a much smoother and more enjoyable experience in everything from games to Steam Big Picture mode, ASUS's Armoury Crate, or even plain old Windows 11. More on Armoury Crate and Windows later though, because I'm not done talking about how great this display is. ASUS advertises 7 millisecond pixel response times, but we measured an average of 4.4 with virtually no overshoot. I just can't get over how smooth this thing is or how beautiful the colors are.
ASUS deals with hardware, Valve deals with software and hosting different products to actually up themselves more. So this actually makes sense. ASUS has more access to hardware, which is why they got more room to actually improve upon the portable device that can actually overtake Steam Deck. And well done, ASUS. Well done. So far I'm seeing good things.
We didn't quite reach the 100% coverage of the sRGB color space that they advertise, but 95% is not only not bad, it trounces the Steam Deck's measly 73%, resulting in a noticeably richer, more vibrant picture that really pops. At least, as long as you keep it protected with a tempered glass screen protector from Dbrand. There, I mentioned you guys, alright? This is especially true if you crank the brightness to 500 nits, which makes it genuinely playable outdoors on a sunny day. At least for a little while. It's worth noting that like the Steam Deck, if you crank everything, especially the 120Hz refresh rate, you're not going to be gaming for very long under the shade of that tree. The display is surprisingly color accurate too though, managing an average Delta E of just 3.6. But it's worth noting that both of our devices skewed a little bit cooler in color temperature, and adjusting the color temp on the Ally only seems to bump up the reds a bit, so we'd recommend leaving it on default. Now, since CalMan isn't supported on Linux right now, we have limited means of measuring the deck's color accuracy, but I can tell you that with its much worse color gamut, it is certain to be worse. One thing we were able to compare though is brightness. The Steam Deck is advertised as 400 nits typical, but we've actually measured over 550 nits on 2 separate decks, which clearly beats even the impressive 500 nits that we measured on the Ally. Why Valve is advertising it so low? We have no idea, but side by side, the Steam Deck is visibly brighter, if only by a bit. The deck also gets dimmer than the Ally too though, something that I care about a lot as someone who games in bed late at night.
To me, actually, the brightness actually would matter if you're actually a gamer. So yeah, there are some things that the Steam Deck can do better. Plus, the ASUS apparently is much more dimmer if it gets more dimmer. So yeah, that's a definitely good concern.
We measured just 4.6 nits minimum on the Steam Deck and 14 on the ROG Ally. To be clear, both are really good, but once again, Valve is cooking up a secret sauce that I wish the competition could match. Fortunately for ASUS, they have their own secret sauce, their zero-gravity thermal system. As stupid as that sounds, it works. While both devices stay cool inside and out, the Ally stays cooler where it matters the most, under your hands. And this is largely thanks to the addition of a second heatsink under the hood that gets its own dedicated vent at the top. Now don't get me wrong, the exhaust on the Ally gets hot, especially if you're gaming in turbo mode where the whole device can drop to 48 watts.
I can imagine, definitely. If you are gaming, if you are actually maxing up your gaming experience, you definitely need to remove the heat quick. So yeah, it makes sense that there's actually a second heat sink for a portable device like this, because all of the components get hot so much faster. So yeah, the exhausts are going to be steaming. The Steam Deck should be steaming, but no, it's the ASUS ROG Ally that's actually steaming.
Whew! Feels like a hairdryer. But what's great is that the vents are positioned in such a way that it shouldn't ever bother you, and I'm much happier with all the heat venting away from the device instead of spreading through the plastics into my hands. It's almost as comfortable as our new Northern Lights t-shirt. Check it out, lttstore.com. Now, most impressively, the Ally does all of this while staying shockingly quiet, and I can't express how big of a difference this makes. I mean, I can show you these graphs where you can see this bump at around 800 Hz that represents the whine of the Steam Deck fan. Apologies, by the way, for our high noise hertz that represent.
Let me just repeat it for a bit there. I need to see this.
Staying shockingly quiet, and I can't express how big of a difference this makes. I mean, I can show you these graphs where you can see this bump at around 800 Hz that represents the whine of the Steam Deck fan. Apologies, by the way, for our high noise floor here. We're still waiting on our acoustic testing chamber. But the bump doesn't tell the experiential story. And it's huge. Like, it's the difference between me recommending that you play with headphones on and telling you to put your headphones away and just listen to these awesome speakers. That was another pleasant surprise. It doesn't get talked about much, but Valve is really good at audio, and somehow the Ally manages to be even better. The Steam Deck gets a touch louder, but the Ally's frequency response is more balanced, and it doesn't need that extra punch to drown out its stupid fan.
The Steam Deck actually is good at sounds, but the ROG Ally is even better even with the fan on? What? Oh my god, that's more than impressive.
kinda feels like the deck is the beta and the Ally is the final release here. At least on the hardware side. Another area where the deck still wins handily is ease of use. Admittedly, to those of you who are new to SteamOS or handhelds in general, there is still a learning curve here. It's just a lot smoother than Armoury Crate SE, ASUS's proprietary software that's used to quickly change settings and access all of your games in one place. I think the best thing I could say about Armoury Crate SE is it's not nearly as awful as I expected. Deleting games from the game library, though, doesn't also uninstall them, and if you uninstall something, it doesn't get automatically deleted from the game library. Opening Armoury Crate also doesn't pause your game, which could lead to some mistakes since the button for it is right below the start button. If you use the game library, rather than just Steam Big Picture for some reason, the background behind your game tiles will change as you select each game, which I guess is a cool enough idea, but in practice it's a blurry mess and super distracting.
So in other words, the Steam Deck is much more user-friendly than the ASUS. So it makes sense. Because, no. Yeah, that's right. Because the Steam Deck actually has better access to the actual user interface of Steam itself. So, yes, the ASUS, although better in hardware, is not that much better in the UI from the Steam Deck. So when it comes to ease of access, yeah, that's right. The Steam Deck is actually much better than the ASUS when it comes to ease of access. You actually get to access your games better. You actually get to do management better with the Steam Deck. But that doesn't mean that there are no ways to actually do proper management in the ASUS. I am sure there are going to be good guides when it comes to using the ASUS ROG Ally properly when it comes to file or games management. So yeah, I am sure they're going to make good patches when it comes to this issue. So yeah.
It ends up feeling more like a bug than a feature. Another small but annoying issue is the contents of the content menu. Why are things like Update Center, Help Center, and System Specs in content rather than in settings? I mean, it's not the end of the world, it's just weird. And if we use ASUS's other button on the left side of the screen, it opens Command Center, where you can quickly change things like your operating and control modes, your refresh rate, your FPS limiter, etc. Really cool. It even lets you customize the tiles, but then when you use a tile that opens a new window, it doesn't automatically select that window. So you open a keyboard or your game profiles, you gotta hit a button or tap the screen first before you start using that window. On the subject of Windows, in spite of Microsoft's 10 years of effort, the touchscreen experience is not great. To overcome this, the Ally comes with Joy to Mouse support, but it's a little bit finicky. Not only did the auto control mode not always swap elegantly when we switched over to the desktop, but manually changing to desktop mode would sometimes take tapping on the screen to get it to register that pressing the thumbstick means that I want a cursor. Then if you swap back to gamepad mode, after you have a cursor, sometimes it'll just stay there, except now you can't control the pointer anymore.
Yeah, not every release product is so perfect, but I'm sure it's going to get patched up. The mouse pointer is still there. Yeah, really it is, yeah.
I mean, these are minor gripes that I fully expect to improve over time. The deck had all kinds of gremlins in the software at launch too. But you're not buying this for what it will be, you're buying it for what it is. And Valve's put in a lot of work that ASUS simply hasn't yet. That doesn't mean this is a clear win for Valve though. The Ally enjoys some big advantages, like the ability to use any game launcher or anti-cheat that you want, or rather are forced to use, and the ability to install apps the same way that you would on a regular desktop computer. You want Discord? Simple. Want to do some video editing on the go? Sure thing. Just, I hope you plan to plug in your own peripherals. There are rumors that Microsoft is working on some kind of handheld gaming mode for Windows, but for now, in most applications, you can have fun clicking on a text box, opening Command Center to open the keyboard, closing Command Center, typing without being able to see the text box, so hopefully you didn't make a mistake, closing your keyboard, and then pressing Enter to add your username. Awesome. In all seriousness, you can speed up this process a bit by mapping actions to any of the buttons for both gamepad and desktop mode, which is great. Personally, when I want to access the keyboard, I swipe up a couple times from the bottom and then press it in the system tray.
That's right, there is a way to actually map out functions when you're actually doing multi-role tasks. If your own platform is emulating a Windows PC. So yeah, that makes sense.
It's just that no matter what your ugly workaround is, the current implementation can be annoying to the point where you just want to take the device and throw it at the wall! And then you take a few deep breaths, you go, hey, at least I'm not on ProtonDB right now, checking to see if my game is supported at all. Now, we already talked about this in our preview video, but if the Steam Deck feels too big and unwieldy for you, the Ally wins again. It's 61 grams lighter, which isn't a ton, but it's enough to feel significant. And we had a few people who daily drive the Steam Deck hold it in their hands, and it's unanimous. The ROG Ally is more comfortable. There are drawbacks. No touchpads, no 16:10 display, and the face buttons are not great. I managed to get the X button jammed on mine at least a dozen times on my playthrough of Stray on the Ally, and I hoped that the production version would be a bit better, but the bad news is it's not. Well, maybe a little better. Oh, it's jammed. Yeah, maybe a little bit of lube would help. But I told them when they came in, I was like, you guys need to fix this in the final tooling, and it's pretty clear based on how similar this is to our prototype, it was already pretty much mass production. For general use, both offer desktop modes, and hooking up to a dock is just one cable, which is sick, but the Ally once again takes the game to a whole different level. Its interface is proprietary.
That's bad.
But their XG Mobile external GPUs get twice the bandwidth of USB 4 or Thunderbolt.
That's good.
They're only available with expensive mobile GPUs in them.
That's bad.
But they allow nearly desktop-like performance on the sort of go. That's really cool. And it could be even better if ASUS would pull their heads out of their collective butts and make a desktop GPU compatible enclosure that can use this XG Mobile interface. The Ally isn't perfect. The onboard Wi-Fi 6E is ripping fast, but it's soldered to the board, so dead Wi-Fi equals dead motherboard. And so far, ASUS hasn't announced any kind of iFixit partnership like Valve has. And can I just say, I really don't understand why they couldn't do a full-length M.2 SSD in here? There seems to be ample space. But it's a big improvement in some of the most important ways, while coming in at a price that could best be described as disruptive. Most consoles are initially sold at a loss, and the hope is that you'll make the money back selling games and subscriptions on the platform. In Valve's case, the math is pretty simple. Steam rakes in buttloads of money through both games and microtransactions, so it makes perfect sense that they sell the Steam Deck for as low as $400. But most people aren't buying that one. For most people, they want a substantial sized SSD. And that's where the Ally gets price competitive, which is surprising. I mean, to be clear, I'm sure ASUS is making money from the Ally. Fundamentally, it's a Chromebook with a decent SoC in it. But I'm willing to bet they're not making much, which might explain why they begged us to show their Xbox controller clone in the preview video, even though it wasn't even a working sample. By the way, we have a working one now, and it's pretty cool, I guess. ASUS's big advantage seems to be their volume. I mean, not compared to Valve, I think they're moving a lot of Steam Decks, but we can tell from the crowdfunding campaigns of competitors like Ioneo and GPD that those guys are expecting to sell thousands of units of a given system. And those thousands of units have to cover tooling costs, marketing, and R&D for the next generation product. To undercut them by literally $400 at the same spec, ASUS needs to move a lot more than thousands of units. They need to move hundreds of thousands of units.
Yep. The ASUS Republic of Gamers Ally console has, yes, it definitely has a lot of competition. It really does. Oh, I'll come back soon. So I'm just saying that the ASUS ROG Ally is not that miles ahead from its competitors, from different crowd crowdfunded consoles that actually went through development. So it still has a lot to prove before it can actually be cemented as a better console than the other handheld consoles in the market. So pretty much, yeah.
The good news for ASUS, though, is that they will. Eventually. Because I struggle.
At least I do until more competition shows up. But because of that recommendation, the fact that this thing is so competitive, the bad news is I suspect it's going to be out of stock everywhere for weeks or even for months. The bright side of that is that, hey, for the time being, the Steam Deck is a much more okay option still than ASUS made it out to be. Its software is more mature, it manages better battery life in low power mode, and it's got a much more robust accessory ecosystem, including third-party Hall effect joysticks, and a whole lineup of cool stuff from Dbrand, including their skins, screen protectors, stick grips, and of course their kill switch case, which
it will definitely change if the ASUS will eventually receive more accessories and more methods in maintenance, and it will slowly get better than the Steam Deck. In hardware, it is definitely better than the Steam Deck, but the Steam Deck is more accessible, much more user-friendly. At the moment, that's the more common product than the ROG Ally. So definitely, if you get the money for a Steam Deck, go for it. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if it's not that better from the ASUS just yet. But I definitely am looking at the silver lining that the ROG Ally will be a much better portable device than the Steam Deck soon enough. It will take months, but it will be stocked up on stores for months too. So the jury is still not there when it comes to which is the better handheld console for all time. So I'm still crossing my fingers because I believe at first that the ROG Ally would have its ups and downs, but it would actually be able to overwhelm the usage of from the Steam Deck. So yeah, I have my high hopes on the ASUS.
which is back in stock now. We're gonna have all of that linked down below. There, I mentioned you guys again. Do I get my check now? If you liked this video, be sure.
Thank you, Linus Tech Tips. Make sure you actually subscribe to his channel on YouTube. That's going to be useful, definitely, indeed. So yeah, that's what I got to say about the ASUS ROG Ally. If you want to see me react to some more stuff, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out my other social links as well. It will be in the description box below the video on my YouTube. But for others who are actually still watching on Facebook, check out my YouTube channel to actually check out those details yourself. This is EliteLenny reporting for duty, signing out. Thank you very much for watching, and I will be seeing you guys on the next one. Cheers!